Emma Carter had always been the kind of woman who held herself together, no matter how hard life pushed. But that evening, in her quiet Seattle home, she finally reached a breaking point. The house felt too silent, too heavy, and the storm outside made everything seem colder than it was. She had just ended a phone call with her husband. Mark, another short, distant conversation from yet another business trip. His voice felt miles away, not only in distance but in emotion. Lately, he forgot things that mattered. Birthdays, anniversaries, simple moments she used to treasure. Tonight was the worst. He had missed their counseling appointment again. Emma sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, trying not to fall apart. She wasn't doing anything wrong or inappropriate, just holding herself, trying to calm her shaking breath, fighting tears she could no longer hide. The loneliness pressed into her chest, and for the first time in months, she didn't try to push it down. She didn't realize anyone else was in the house. A soft knock, then a quiet voice. "Emma, you okay?" She looked up, startled. In the doorway stood Ethan Walsh, Mark's closest friend and someone Emma trusted more than she ever expected. He was supposed to pick up some tools Mark had borrowed, but he hadn't expected to find Emma like this, and Emma hadn't expected the warmth in his eyes. She quickly wiped her face, embarrassed. "I'm fine, really. Just tired." But Ethan stepped inside the room, his expression saying he didn't believe a word of it. "Emma, you don't look fine. You look like you've been holding too much by yourself." His voice was calm, gentle, nothing romantic, nothing inappropriate. Just concern. It's the kind she hadn't felt from anyone in a long time. Emma opened her mouth to respond, but emotion came out instead of words. One tear slipped down her cheek, and she hated that she couldn't stop it. Ethan didn't move closer, but he stayed there, solid, steady, someone who wasn't running away. "Can I sit?" he asked softly. She nodded. He sat across from her. Not too near, just enough to let her know she wasn't alone. "Do you want to talk?" he asked. Emma hesitated. She'd never let anyone see her this vulnerable, especially not her husband's friend. But something about Ethan made her feel safe, like he wasn't going to judge her or tell her to be strong. She took a shaky breath. "Feel like I'm disappearing, like no one notices when I'm hurting." Ethan listened. Really listened. His eyes didn't wander. His phone stayed in his pocket, and his attention stayed on her. Like she mattered. That alone made her chest tighten. "What did Mark do?" he asked quietly. Emma shook her head, not wanting to make it sound like gossip. "It's not one thing. It's everything. The distance, the excuses. He forgets I'm still here." The rain outside grew louder, filling the silence between them. Ethan lowered his voice. "Emma, you don't deserve to feel invisible." Words simple, honest, hit her harder than she expected. Not because they were romantic, but because no one had said something that true in years. For the first time that night, she looked at him directly. Ethan's expression wasn't pity. It was understanding. It was warmth. It was steady support from someone who cared, even if he wasn't supposed to care this much. "I'm sorry," Emma whispered, embarrassed again. "You didn't come here for this." Ethan shook his head. "I came here to help a friend pick up something. Turns out I was supposed to help with something else." The gentle way he said it made her breath catch, not in a romantic way, but in a way that reminded her how long it had been since someone offered kindness without expecting anything back. "Thank you," she said softly. He smiled, not big, not bold, just enough to feel real. Any time. For a moment, the room felt warmer. The storm wasn't as loud. The weight on her chest wasn't as heavy. But just as Emma felt herself breathe again, her phone buzzed. A message from Mark. Only 3 words. "Can't talk tonight." Emma stared at the screen, her heart sinking again. Ethan saw her expression fall, but before he could say anything, Mima whispered, "Ethan, I don't know how much more I can take." His eyes softened, and he leaned forward just slightly, not to cross a line, but to steady her breaking world. "Then let me help," he said. Emma didn't know what she would do next, but she knew. Everything was about to change. The storm outside continued to batter the windows, but inside, Emma felt a small flicker of relief. Ethan stayed with her, not saying much, just keeping his presence steady, like an anchor in a turbulent sea. She hadn't realized how much she needed someone to simply sit with her. His calm presence was a comfort she hadn't felt in years, a reminder that not everyone left when life got hard. After a few minutes of silence, Ethan spoke softly. "Do you want to talk about it, or just sit?" "I don't mind either way." Emma hesitated, then chose words she hadn't spoken out loud to anyone in months. "I feel like I'm losing myself. I keep trying to be the perfect wife, the perfect friend, the perfect version of me that everyone expects. But it's exhausting. I don't even know who I am anymore." Ethan nodded slowly, his expression serious but kind. "It's easy to lose yourself when you keep giving and nobody notices. But you're still here. That means something. You're stronger than you think. Even if you don't feel it right now." His words struck a chord. They weren't dramatic, weren't trying to fix her life in one sentence. They were simple, honest, and full of understanding. For the first time in weeks, Emma felt the tension in her shoulders loosen, even if just a little. She took a shaky breath and admitted, "I haven't slept well. I can't remember the last time I felt truly happy. Even little things like cooking dinner or reading a book feel like chores." Ethan leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees, not too close, just present. "Then maybe tonight you don't have to do any of that. Just let yourself be. You don't need to fix everything all at once. Start small. Breathe. Let yourself feel something besides pressure." Emma tried to follow his advice. She focused on the sound of the rain, the faint rumble of thunder, and Ethan's calm presence. Her breathing steadied, her thoughts slowed, and for the first time in days, she didn't feel entirely alone. "You know," Ethan said after a while, "sometimes people think being strong means handling everything yourself. But strength also means letting someone in when it's too much to carry alone." Emma's eyes welled up again. Not from sadness this time, but from relief. Relief that someone saw her, really saw her and didn't judge. Relief that she could feel vulnerable without fear. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what I would do if you weren't here." Ethan smiled softly. "That's what friends are for. And honestly, you shouldn't have to do everything alone." The words hung in the air, simple but heavy with emotion. Emma realized that for so long she had hidden behind smiles, small talk, and routines. She hadn't let anyone in truly and since before she married Mark. And now, here was someone who offered understanding without expectation. Someone who didn't make her feel guilty for needing support. Minutes passed, then hours. Yet it didn't feel awkward or forced. They shared stories, quiet laughter, and moments of silence that weren't uncomfortable. They were healing. Each word, each glance, each soft smile added a layer of comfort she hadn't felt in years. Then a loud crack of thunder shook the house, startling them both. Emma jumped, and Ethan chuckled lightly. "Storm's putting on a show tonight," he said. She smiled a small, genuine smile. "I almost forgot storms could be comforting. I always thought they were scary." Ethan's eyes softened. "Sometimes they are. But sometimes they remind us we're alive. And sometimes they remind us that even in chaos, someone can. Be steady. Someone can stay." Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest. It wasn't romantic in the typical sense. There was no inappropriate touch, no flirtation. It was emotional intimacy, the kind that makes someone feel safe, seen, and human. The phone buzzed again, and she froze. Another message from Mark. She glanced at it and saw only one line. "Late again. Sorry." Emma felt a familiar pang of disappointment. She wanted to snap at him, but instead, she let herself exhale and look at Ethan. His gaze was patient, kind, unwavering. "You're not alone," he said quietly, almost like he could read her mind. "Even if he can't be here right now, You don't have to carry everything by yourself. Not tonight, not ever. Emma felt a tear roll down her cheek, but this time it was different. It wasn't just sorrow, it was release. It's a kind that comes from realizing someone genuinely cares without expecting anything back. She didn't know what the future held with Mark, or with her life in general. But in that moment, she felt grounded. She sat back, letting the blanket slip around her shoulders, and for the first time in a long time, felt a sense of hope. Maybe tomorrow wouldn't be perfect, but tonight she had someone who understood. Someone who reminded her that being seen, truly seen, could make a storm feel like home. And just as she leaned back, ready to finally rest, Ethan glanced at the clock, realizing how late it had gotten. I should probably head home soon, he said softly. Emma felt a pang of disappointment, but also gratitude. Thank you for staying, she said. Ethan smiled. Anytime, Emma. Remember, you don't have to face everything alone. As he left, the door closed gently behind him, leaving Emma with a quiet storm outside. She felt a warmth she hadn't felt in years. Something had shifted, and she knew her life wouldn't feel quite as heavy tomorrow. The next morning, sunlight filtered softly through the blinds, painting warm streaks across the living room. Emma woke with a quiet heaviness still clinging to her chest, but also with a strange sense of clarity. Last night had changed something. In her, a small, fragile spark of hope that maybe she didn't have to carry everything alone. She moved slowly, making coffee, the familiar routine grounding her. The storm had passed, leaving the streets outside sparkling wet. Yet the calm outside contrasted sharply with the whirlwind in her mind. She kept replaying Ethan's words and his steady presence. It wasn't romantic, at least not in the way stories often described. But it stirred something she hadn't realized she missed: genuine care. Attention without expectation, understanding without judgment. As she sipped her coffee, a knock came at the door. She almost didn't answer it. It was early, but the polite sound made her curious. She opened the door to find Ethan standing there, holding a small package. "Morning," he said, his smile easy and natural. "I thought you might like this." Emma blinked. "For me?" He nodded. "Just a little something." "No reason except that you mentioned last night you hadn't had a chance to relax in a while." Inside the package was a simple journal and a pen. Emma's chest tightened. The gesture was small, but thoughtful, exactly the kind of emotional support she hadn't realized she craved. She looked up at him, feeling a rush of gratitude. "Thank you," she said softly. "You didn't have to." "I know," Ethan replied, "but I wanted to." "You deserve a little peace, Emma. A little space for yourself." For a moment they just looked at each other, the air heavy with unspoken understanding. She realized that last night wasn't about drama or romance, or even confessions. It was about being seen. And this morning, that feeling hadn't faded. Ethan glanced at his watch. "I should probably get going," he said, a hint of reluctance in his voice. "But if you want, we could grab coffee later. No pressure, just as friends." Emma's heart skipped, not in a romantic way, but in a recognition of connection she hadn't felt in years. "I'd like that," she said. He smiled, the kind of smile that felt like sunshine after a storm. "Great, I'll text you." After he left, Emma sat down with her journal, letting her thoughts spill onto the pages. She wrote about her loneliness, her frustrations with Mark, and the strange relief she felt from last night's conversation. For the first time, she didn't censor herself. She didn't try to be strong or perfect. She just wrote. Later that afternoon, while she was tidying the living room, her phone buzzed. It was Ethan. Coffee at 4. Emma smiled, feeling a warmth that wasn't fleeting. She texted back quickly. "Yes, see you then." The hours until their meeting passed slowly. She found herself thinking about how rare it was to meet someone who could listen without judgment, who could make her feel supported simply by being present. She wasn't thinking about romance, at least not in the cliché sense. She was thinking about trust, about understanding, about the relief of being genuinely heard. By 4 p.m., she was ready. She met Ethan at a small cafe nearby. The atmosphere was quiet, cozy, the smell of coffee blending with soft music. They chose a corner table away from the chatter of other customers. Ken started talking. This time, the conversation flowed differently. She shared small dreams she had once abandoned. He shared stories of challenges he faced in his own life, subtly reminding her that even people who seem strong struggle too. Laughter mixed with reflective silence, and the bond between them grew. Built on respect and shared humanity. At one point, Emma looked outside the window at the fading sunlight. "I didn't realize how much I needed this," she admitted. Ethan nodded. "Sometimes we need someone outside our usual world to remind us we're not alone." The words hit her deeply. For so long, she had felt isolated, trapped in routines that didn't nurture her. Last night, his presence had started to break that barrier. Today, this simple coffee outing reinforced it. She felt lighter, more herself, more capable of facing whatever came next. When they parted, Ethan said, "Remember, you don't have to handle everything alone. Even when things feel heavy, you have people around you who care." Emma smiled, her chest tight with gratitude. "I'll remember." "Thank you, truly." As she walked home, journal in hand, she realized that life could feel heavy, but it didn't have to be unbearable. Connection, trust, and genuine care could make even the stormiest nights manageable. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe her heart could heal slowly. With someone who understood. The next few days passed with a rhythm that felt almost surreal to Emma. Life hadn't changed dramatically. Mark was still busy with work. And the house still carried its familiar quiet, but something inside her had shifted. She no longer felt entirely alone. Ethan's kindness, his attention, and his steady presence reminded her that support could come in unexpected forms, and that it was okay to accept it. On Friday afternoon, Ethan texted, "Want to go for a walk? The weather's perfect." Emma hesitated for only a moment before replying yes. She knew this wasn't about romance, it was about connection, something deeper, something human. She needed that grounding, that reminder that she could feel seen and understood. They met at the nearby park. The sun was warm, the air fresh, and the faint smell of flowers from early spring filled the path. They walked side by side, not too close, not distant, just moving together through the world. Emma noticed how effortless it was to talk to him, how easy it felt to share thoughts she'd kept buried. "I almost forgot how much I needed days like this," she admitted quietly. "I've been so caught up in obligations, in keeping appearances, that I stopped noticing life." Ethan nodded, his gaze on the path ahead. "It's easy to get lost in routines, but sometimes you need a pause. Even a small one can change everything." Emma smiled, feeling lighter. "You make it sound simple, but it isn't. It's been years since anyone reminded me it's okay to slow down." They talked about everything: books they loved, childhood memories, small embarrassing moments, lighthearted conversation mingled with quiet reflections. It was normal, but in its normalcy, Emma felt a healing she hadn't known she needed. It wasn't about grand gestures. It was about attention, genuine concern, shared laughter, and understanding. At one point, they stopped at a small bench overlooking a pond. Ducks glided across the water, and the sun reflected in golden ripples. Emma leaned back, exhaling slowly. "I can't remember the last time I felt this calm," she said softly. Ethan smiled. "Sometimes calm feels like magic, because it's rare. But it's not magic, it's noticing, accepting, and being noticed in return." Emma thought about Mark, how he was always distant, busy, preoccupied. But she didn't feel anger, at least not today. She felt awareness. She realized she had been surviving on autopilot, not really living. Ethan hadn't solved anything. He had only reminded her of a truth she'd ignored. Life could still be meaningful even amidst challenges. They walked back toward the park exit, their steps in rhythm with one another. Comfortable silence settled between them, punctuated by soft laughter when Ethan shared a story about a coffee disaster he had experienced earlier in the week. Emma felt a warmth in her chest that wasn't romantic. It was reassurance, friendship, trust, and emotional intimacy, the kind that could rebuild a person's heart. Back at her house, she made herself tea, and the journal she carried all week felt heavier with unspoken thoughts. She opened it and began writing again, this time reflecting on the past week. Her words weren't complaints. They were realizations, small truths about herself and her life. She wrote about gratitude for Ethan's presence, for the support she had been missing, and for the small steps she was taking to reclaim herself. Later, when Mark called, she didn't feel the same despair she had felt a week ago. She calmly explained that she needed more support, that she needed him to be present, not just physically, but emotionally. His voice sounded startled, almost guilty, but she didn't dwell on it. She had learned to prioritize her own well-being first. When the call ended, Emma leaned back, smiling to herself. She realized something important. Happiness wasn't about waiting for someone else to change. It was about accepting help when it was offered, noticing small kindnesses, and allowing herself to heal. Ethan hadn't fixed her marriage, and he hadn't offered romance, but he had reminded her of her own strength, her own worth, and the importance of connection. That evening, she received a text from Ethan. "Good night. Remember, you're never alone." She held the phone, feeling a calm, warmth in her chest, a quiet sense of security. She replied with a simple, "Thank you. I'll remember." As she went to bed, the house felt different, not because it had changed, but because she had. The storm outside had passed, and the sunlight inside her heart had returned. She had learned that emotional support could come unexpectedly, that vulnerability was not weakness, and that true care could transform even the loneliest of nights into hope-filled mornings. Emma drifted to sleep, her journal resting on the nightstand, the faint smile on her lips a testament to the quiet, lasting change she had experienced. Life was still messy, still uncertain, but she knew now that connection, understanding, and simple kindness could make all the difference.